Today is Thursday, February the 15th, 2018, and the location of the interview is at the Veterans Counseling Center in Walla Walla, Washington. I am interviewing Michael Huwe, that's Huwe, a Vietnam veteran who served in the United States Army. He left the service as a Specialist 5. Once again, Michael, will you state your name and spell it?
Michael Dean Huwe, Huwe.
Okay. Michael was born February the 10th, 1949. Dixie Ferguson and Vic Phillips, the videographer, are conducting the interview today. And we represent the Blue Mountain chapter of the American Red Cross. So, Michael, or Mike, what war and branch of service were you in?
The Vietnam conflict, and I was in Army helicopters.
Mm-hmm. All right. And where in all did you serve? You mentioned Vietnam.
Vietnam started out in Pleiku in the Central Highlands, went to Bambi-Tuet East for a while, then north to Kontum, and then on K. Mm-hmm. And that was where I ended up. And we will get into those details during the interview. Were you drafted or did you enlist? I enlisted.
And where were you living at the time?
Walla.
And you enlisted why?
I thought it was everybody's duty to serve. My father had served, and I just felt it was my duty.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of your father, when and where did he serve?
In World War II in Europe. Mm-hmm. Did a lot of different places. But
all right.
Europe.
So he set the example for sure. Why did you pick the service branch that you joined?
Well, I looked at all of them, and first I wanted to kind of be in the maintenance because I like working with my hands. And somebody said, well, you ought to try helicopter school, so I did.
And, okay, very well. And do you recall your first days in service, and where was your basic training?
It was in Fort Lewis, and it was in the middle of the winter, and I'll never forget it. It was miserable.
Meaning?
It was wet, snowy, rainy, slush. I mean, it's just miserable the whole time.
And by the way, what did your parents think about you joining the service at that time?
I don't think there was really much talk about it. It's just something I did.
And the years of service were?
End of 68, very end. And then into 69, 70, and I was discharged in 71.
In 71, from the Army?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so your mom and was Dad at home at the time? Was he still alive?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So not too much flinching about it?
No.
Okay. Okay, getting back to your basic training, could you just give an example? You mentioned the dreariness, what it was like, food, conditions.
The food wasn't all that bad, but the conditions were just horrendous. I don't know, it was one of the worst years in that Seattle area for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's like we'd go out to the range and shoot pop-up targets that never popped up because they're frozen to the ground. And just, I mean, that's how it went. The whole thing was like that. You do a forced march. I remember one time we did, I think it was 8 or 10 miles on a forced march, and we didn't do it fast enough. So we had to march back, and I mean, it was just wet and miserable.
What is a forced march?
It's a full pack, and no buses, no trains, no nothing. You're marching, and that's it.
How long did that last? Your whole training?
8 weeks.
8 weeks in Furlough.
Yeah.
So you got through that. How about, you said the food wasn't bad. How about your sleeping conditions?
It wasn't bad. It was a little, getting used to having that many guys around, but, we did well. I thought we worked well together.
And then after those 8 weeks, then you went on to helicopter training?
Yeah.
And you want to describe where and what that was about?
Well, I was in Fort Rucker, and the funny part is we left this weather here, and they issued us khakis because we were going south. We got off in Montgomery, Alabama, and they picked us up in these old buses with no windows in them. and it snowed the night before. So we're in short sleeve khakis going 100 miles from Montgomery, Alabama to Fort Rucker. And that wasn't a good start. But the next day it was hot, so.
Every day's a different day.
Yeah.
And you arrived at Fort Rucker, and again, this was your chosen MOS,
Yeah.
and they gave it to you.
Yeah.
And, all right.
And some didn't get it. I mean, in my group. Didn't
Was
get
it a matter of testing for
Yeah.
it?
You did a series of dexterity tests and written tests, and I guess it worked.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's where I went.
Okay, then how long was your advanced training in Fort Rucker?
Well, there was 2 stages. There was turbine engine school and reciprocating engine school, and I went to both. So that was 8 weeks.
8 weeks worth. During that time, were you pretty happy with your choice?
Yeah, I found it interesting, and it is what I wanted to do. So
And that would have been in the year of 68 and 69.
that had been in '69.
And you knew where this was going to take you.
Oh yeah. Nobody that went to helicopter school doubted where they were going.
And what did you think about that? I mean,
It didn't really bother me. Like I've stated, when you're young, you're dumb, and that's.
or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but were you kind of looking forward to this challenge?
I don't know if I was looking forward to it, but I accepted it.
Good
you
answer.
know.
Huh?
So that's.
Were you hearing from the guys coming home?
Just one guy, and that was in basic training though. One of our DIs was actually a returned Vietnam vet.
Drill instructor.
Who had been wounded,
Uh-huh.
and he took it out on us. I think, I don't know. He might have saved some lives, I don't know.
He earned the right.
Yeah, he earned it.
So, okay, so what were the days like at Fort Rucker? Long days, intense?
It was a lot of learning, a lot of it. I've got a picture of the books we had to go through, and it was a lot of information to assimilate.
And not only that, the responsibility that you had.
Yeah. It's not only yourself in that aircraft, you have other people. And
Right.
it's important that things are done right.
Absolutely. And so at the end of this, were you going to be a crew chief and mechanic for your helicopter?
You didn't know when you left.
Okay.
You didn't have any idea. And then when we landed in Benoit, people left from there to their units, and you didn't know until you got to your unit where you were going.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know until I actually landed in Pleiku,
Mm-hmm.
where I was going to be.
Oh, okay. Okay, then fast forward, you're through with your 8 weeks, and did you get an immediate assignment to Vietnam, or did you get to go home?
No, I got to come home.
Mm-hmm.
That was for, I think, 30 days, but I can't remember for sure. It was for a while. It was either 2 weeks or 30 days.
I'm curious, during that time at home, is it just kind of like you're kind of chomping, like you got this ahead of you and you want to get going?
No. I did a fair amount of drinking with my friends that were still here, and there was no rush. I mean, I don't think it mattered one way or the other. I was ready to go by the time it was time to go.
Right.
But
And where did you leave from to go to Vietnam?
see, where did I leave the first time? I had so many trips.
Seattle, San Francisco, Travis?
I think I left out of San Francisco
Okay,
the first time.
all right. Do you remember the flight to Vietnam? The
Yeah,
first flight?
it was pretty subdued. I remember that. It was pretty quiet.
Yeah. Was the whole plane pretty quiet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot going on. Of course, there wasn't much to talk about. This is all new for everybody that was in that plane.
Right. And you did land in Benoit.
Yeah.
Do you remember getting off the plane and your first impressions?
I just knew it was hot, really hot. And I mean, that was stifling hot.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm a sweater, so I didn't know how I was going to make that, but I made it.
And there was an initial orientation at
Yeah.
Benoit then for
Yeah.
you? Mhm.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to your first assignment?
I think it was 10 days or close to it. It was a while.
Just kind of hanging out until
Yeah.
they get you organized.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Jet Set was right across the way. In fact, I have a picture of it.
And what's the jet set?
It's a club.
Oh, convenient.
Yes, real convenient. Too convenient.
Okay, so your assignment now is Pleiku.
Yep.
And how'd you get up there?
Flew in a CH-130, and we lit, and they didn't even tell me where to go. I've got this giant duffel bag, and they said, "Here you go," and then they took off again. So I just walked over to the side and started talking to people, and they told me where to go.
Oh, wait a minute. That was after you landed in,
Yeah,
in
in
Pleiku.
Pleiku.
And they took off.
Yeah, they took off.
You're on your own.
Yeah, here you go.
Were there a group of you that
No.
trained together, or you just kind of?
Oh, it was just me that went to Pleiku. Nobody else in that whole class ended up, as far as I know, in Pleiku.
Okay, what were the first few days or week like once you got to Pleiku?
You were busy because they ran you around like just getting the barracks, which was a Quonset hut, but I mean,
Now, this would be in '69.
yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
And then you had to draw weapons, and you were pretty busy for 2 or 3 days.
Was there, I know that was a hot area. Were there, I mean, battle-wise, was there a lot of action going on?
At the time, when I was first there was a lot going on.
Incoming and,
Not every night, but long enough that after a while you got immune to it. We'd actually be on top of the bunkers smoking pot and watching what was going on. Well, it's the truth.
no, this is for real. So you had, did you have perimeter duty while
Yeah.
you were waiting? Well, what was your assignment once you got there then? What were you
Well,
gonna be doing?
actually, I didn't get an assigned, the Loaches were
And
volunteers.
explain a loach.
It's a light observation helicopter, Hughes
does-
500.
And it does what?
It, part of a hunter-killer team that goes out looking for animals or people or caches or trails or whatever.
Kind of like a forward type of an aircraft.
No, actually, it would be forward, but not necessarily in the same form that the Air Force used theirs for. Weren't spotters for anybody else because we ran with 2 Cobras and a gunship, a chase ship.
So your mission was going out and looking for trails, caches,
Enemy,
enemy,
or pack animals, whatever.
pack animals. Yeah. Were you let's see, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so you got your assignment after the first couple of weeks, you're getting organized, and then you're going out in the field.
Yeah.
Can you describe, do you even remember the first couple of missions
Oh,
out there?
yeah.
Could you describe?
They were quiet, but you're the new guy. So they put you in what they call the Alpha helicopter.
Which means,
There's 2 helicopters. One is on the ground right at Treetop looking for stuff. The other one circles him, orbits him. That's called the Alpha ship.
and that's protecting him.
Right, all the time. If he gets shot at, then you just blow the whole area away with rounds.
Okay. And you were in both types of helicopters?
Yeah,
At various times?
yeah, various times.
At various times?
But when you're new there, you always end up in the Alpha ship.
Going hovering.
Yeah,
If there was some...
until you're tried,
Yeah.
by fire. I mean, that's true. That's
Yeah.
how it happened.
Well, what were your first couple of trips out like? You had to be pretty nervous?
Yeah, pretty apprehensive. The guys were really good. They, tried to tell me what would happen and what was going to go on. And the pilots were fantastic.
Were they?
And they were volunteers. And they
So
could
they
fly.
volunteered to come over?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they could fly. I mean, these guys were fantastic. But everybody helped. It was a tight unit, really tight. It wasn't very big, There wasn't very many of us.
Were you together for the whole time you were in Pleiku? You were working together as a team?
Yeah, most of the time.
Did you go out every day?
Not every day, no. Because only 2 helicopters would usually go out at a time. The base one and the alpha one.
All right. Can you describe one of your first engagements?
Yeah, I can. It's perfect because I use this analogy when I tell other people, which I didn't do for a long time, but I don't know, you're old enough to have watched Gunsmoke. The opening sequence was in Gunsmoke, was the standoff in the middle of the street. And that's kind of how mine was. A guy was going down a trail, but I thought that I could see a rifle sticking out of his pack, but I couldn't tell. He had dark hair and it was right behind his head. So we followed him for a while, and finally I guess he just got nervous. He turned around and whipped that rifle out and started bringing it up, and then I just let go. And that was my first true test.
Was he by himself out there?
Yeah, as far as I could tell.
Yeah. What kind? So were you were in a gunship?
No, not a gunship.
I'm sorry, you were a crew chief on a regular.
Crew chief door gunner.
Okay.
Crew chief door gunner.
Door gunner. I'm sorry. That's what I was looking for. Door gunner. Yeah. Was there just one of you?
In that helicopter, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's 2 helicopters.
Got it. Okay. So, how often in a month would you say that you probably engaged the enemy?
Oh, in a month?
Or a week?
It would just depend on our area of operation. If we had a tough AO, like when we were in Duke Lot flying out of Bambi to it was every day.
Every day.
Yeah. But we'd fly 2 or 3 missions a day, you know, it just.
Did you ever get shot down?
No.
Wow.
It got a lot of rounds in the aircraft, but they're pretty tough. They're pretty durable.
Yeah, no kidding. And the other mission you were on was at the Treetop level?
No, that's the same.
Oh, I'm sorry, but you flew both types of...
Well, I flew slicks later on, and I flew Charlie model gunships when I first got there, because they hadn't got the Cobras yet.
What was it like flying at Treetop level? That's called a sitting deck.
No, actually, it's not. Because, well, when you think about it, I thought the same thing, but when you think about it, they've only got so long to zero in on you because of trees and just the nature of flying by that fast. Because we do up to 60, 70 knots.
Yeah.
You know.
On another note, could you describe Vietnam, flying over it?
Beautiful. It's a beautiful country.
And in what way?
Just green and lush. And I remember when we were in Bambi to it, we went to Teddy Roosevelt's hunting lodge. You know, it wasn't his then, but I mean, you could still see the remnants of it. And it's a pretty country.
Did you, and I'm going to get into this, were you assigned pretty much all over South Vietnam?
No, just Pleiku and both sides of Pleiku, east and west and north.
And just for the record, could you locate where Pleiku would be in South Vietnam?
Central Highlands is a simple answer for that. It's right in the center of the Central Highlands.
Yeah. And did you actually get over to the Ho Chi Minh Trail?
Yeah, on several occasions. And some of our heaviest combat was over there. When we were flying Duke Lot, see, Duke Lot was right at the end of one of the offshoots of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. That was one of the valleys they used a lot. And that was a hot area every time. In fact, when you fly over there, it's kind of discerning because you see all these helicopter bodies that are still, you know, around, what's left of them.
By the way, what division were you assigned to?
4th.
4th Infantry.
Yeah.
The whole time?
Yeah.
Are there other incidents that you can share that really
The other one that still haunts me is the one where my best friend got killed.
Do you mind sharing the story?
Well, we were on mission, and he was flying this short ship. I was his Alfie, and he got this guy on a trail. Excuse me.
It's okay. We have lots of tears in here. We got plenty of time.
Well, anyhow, he shot him. And then we used to do what we call a stitch-up. You'd go in and you'd just blow them away with rounds, make sure they were dead. He went back in to do that, and the guy rolled over and just nailed him in the helicopter.
Don't forget them, do you? Yeah. Yeah. This is not any type of a trick question whatsoever. When you went over, as we all did you see real purpose in the mission for America being over there?
When I was first going over, I did. But by the time I left, no.
Could you distinguish the difference?
But when I first got over there, anything outside of base camp was free game. I mean, you could shoot at just about anything. By the time I left, it took an act of Congress to shoot something.
Do you know why the change?
Yeah, because they were trying to nullify everything that was going on. You know, that one time we captured our interpreter, and we couldn't figure out what was going on because we flew the mission, and there was nothing there, nothing. But NBC or ABC or whoever was in the chase ship, and they were filming all this for the news, and we were making fake news, what they call it, fake news now. And I wrote home to my mom and told her, I said, don't believe everything you see. And
yeah, interesting. In the beginning, did you believe that the war was winnable?
yeah, when I first went over there, I did. Because we're mighty, we have the power, you know, and we have the logistics, we have everything.
You're right. And again, this is a very neutral question. Was it explained to you the mission of the war? Why we went?
It was never really explained why. It was just something that we needed to do.
Because?
Just because it was a good policy. That I think the last thing I heard that even tried to make sense out of it is encroachment. You know, if they don't stop them here, they'll be on our doorstep, kind of thing.
Right.
And
And I think that was a very, yeah, for sure. Was there a time that, and it's all history now, but that you did go across into Cambodia or?
flew over Cambodia a lot.
Quite a bit.
We weren't supposed to say anything about it, but
Right. I
we
think
would go over, like, we'd do a mission out of Duklop, and that's how we'd dump our ammo. We'd just go over there and shoot up the whole trail, you know, as far as we could fly. And
Right. So, let's see, were you a lot of the time really close support for the 4th Infantry, the ground troops then?
no, not really.
Not too
We
much?
more or less did a lot of support for our own unit, because we had tracks and grunts too.
Would you define tracks for the record?
Oh, we had APCs and
And those are?
armored personnel carriers, yeah, it's just, yeah.
It's okay. Right. Yeah. By the way, you mentioned your mom. Were you writing regularly?
I tried to, but it's like everybody, you know, there'd be dry spells, and then, you know, when we got busy, we got busy.
And what were your living conditions like?
They weren't bad. I was lucky, you know, being in a base camp as large as Pleiku. There was even a swimming pool there, you know, which was unheard of.
Right.
But it wasn't bad.
And how many missions did you ever count your missions?
No, they gave you some hours. I had over, I think it was 2,600 hours in the air, but that was in a 2-year period.
And you were never shot down? Man, that's amazing. Uh, I'm curious, did you sleep well at night? You knew you were going to go back out?
And
the
not at
next day.
first. But after a while, yeah, you could deal with anything because you lived on adrenaline and, you know, and your buddies.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and they became very band of brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, during that time, did you get Indian R&R?
Oh, yeah, I went on a lot of them.
Yeah. Where
I've
else did
got-
you go?
See, I went to Malaysia twice, Taiwan, Singapore. See, no, I'm forgetting something here. Oh, maybe that's about it. And a few in countries.
In like on the coast?
Bangkok, you know.
Bangkok,
Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of that, did you ever fight alongside like Australians or?
Didn't fight alongside of them. I've met a few, but we never really. We were in support once in a blue moon. I think one time for. I'm not sure now, but I think it was the Republic of Korea.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we flew, I think, 1 or 2 missions for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
Yeah, because I think they were down by Nha Trang.
Yeah, they weren't. I know usually in our area of operations.
By the way, when you were there, did you ever hear the stories about the Idrang Valley?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were there any of those remaining trips that maybe have came back to fight?
No, but
again?
we had one from Ashwa Valley, a sergeant who was our sergeant for a while. Not very long, but he
He had
was
been
for a
there?
while. Yeah,
Wow,
he'd got wounded and then was actually,
wow,
he asked to come back.
wow. Did you do any support for Special Forces?
We'd fly stuff in for them, but sometimes we'd do searches around their area and we'd let them know if we saw anything that looked like it was getting built up or, you know, like maybe something was going to happen. But not in direct support.
How would you define the North Vietnamese fighter?
Very capable. I remember one time, a lot of times when we got shot at, it was like the old sucker punch. They'd wait until you fly over, then they'd shoot you from behind and shoot at you. But we came up on some NVA, I remember it was on Highway 1 going north to Kontum. And we came up on them and they stood and fought. I mean, they weren't scared of the helicopters, one bit.
Yeah. Did you really ever very often come in contact with the enemy or the villagers? Did you ever talk to the
Yeah.
people very much?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
a lot. We'd see, a lot of times we'd put down in areas that were way afield because we'd be coordinating with somebody else or with our grunt unit who's already out there. Or, you know, we had a chance, opportunity a lot of times to talk to them.
Were they receptive to you?
Yeah, most of the times.
They were.
Yeah.
They liked Americans?
They seemed to where I was at. The mountain yards were really good.
Yes, yes, they were.
Yeah.
Do I recall that there were a lot of them in your area?
Yeah,
Mhm.
lots.
Mhm.
And they were good fighters too. They worked with the Special Forces,
Mhm.
but they were good.
You mentioned having, you did have interpreters with you?
Mhm. They were available. We didn't carry them, but they were available.
Mhm.
They were part of the
Did-
grunt unit.
Did you mentioned the news, did you have a chance to hear the news?
No.
What was going on?
All we got is, once in a while, is something from AFVN, you know, in-country radio or TV, and it was so biased that even we knew it, you know. It just,
Was there such a person as Hanoi Hannah?
yeah, played good music.
And when you had some downtime in base camp, what were things you could do or enjoy or relax you?
Oh, yeah. Well, we'd go to the club, of course, and smoke pot. A lot
How
of pot.
did you get by with that on base?
Smoking? Oh, easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Nobody even thought about it. after a while.
There were no rules
Not really.
about it on base?
Especially us being just a small hunter-killer team. Our highest guy was a major, and we never saw him. But we were left to ourselves. I mean, I never shined a boot. I never pressed a uniform. I had hooch maids that, did my laundry. But
Huh. Kind of a unique situation.
yeah, it was in some respects, because we didn't have anybody leaning on us
Huh.
all the time. But we were expected to perform.
Exactly. By the way, when you were on the ground, so being the door gunner, you also, and crew chief,
Yeah.
so could you explain your responsibilities when you were on the ground?
Well, we had to take care of the helicopter, the armament, especially your life depended on it. And the same thing with the helicopter. You did a good job.
Now, I'm going to be a little funny here. So the pot didn't get in the way
No.
of your...
That wasn't done when you were working on a helicopter or flying.
All right, good.
We'll put that in there right now. You knew you were done for at least the night or the day, whatever the case may be.
How much maintenance was required per helicopter? Was it daily?
Oh, you had some daily. Most of it was on a periodic maintenance. There was scheduled maintenance for almost every part of it. And you had to complete that and sign off on it, and it had to be inspected.
And how many helicopters did you have?
Let's see, I think there was 6 in our unit, 6 loaches. And there were 6 or 7 slicks.
And if you'll define what a slick is.
Oh, that's a UH-1H Iroquois.
And that's a troop carrier?
Yeah,
Yes.
primarily. It was a workhorse is what it was.
Uh-huh, right.
'Cause-
Did they perform well?
Oh,
All of
yeah.
the helicopters?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh, they did.
In fact, for as much usage as they got, really, the maintenance was incredible on them. I don't remember of one going down that wasn't from enemy fire.
Really?
Yeah,
That's remarkable.
yeah, it is.
Now, this is respectful, but is there such a thing as what they call the Jesus nut? Is that
On a
true?
540 rotor system, actually there is.
Would you explain that?
It's just the nut that, it is, it's a big nut on the top of the input shaft for the rotor blades.
Which holds the whole thing together.
Well, not actually, but yeah, it could. If you put enough G's to it, it could come off.
Okay. Now, how about flying in heavy rain?
That was never a problem.
Not a fun.
Biggest problem was visibility. You'd get that ground fog, as you probably know, over there, and hit it. You'd come above it, but landing again was always, you had to have a good pilot to punch through that to get back on base.
Your pilots, were they repeats? Did they come
Only
back
one
over?
that I know of was a repeat, and he was tremendous. I think that was it, just one. That I can remember.
Uh-huh. And what made the pilots so good?
I think they just understood their job. They, you could tell a good pilot from a bad pilot right away. Like if we made contact, if he was a new pilot, he'd have a chance to turn the helicopter so he could see what was going on. Well, that's the last thing you wanted, because I'm the one with the gun.
Right.
So if you're turning me away from what's happening, you're going to cause some trouble. And there was other little things, and some of them didn't make it, as pilots, at least not in our unit.
Would there be any that would wash out over there?
Yeah.
They would.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Speaking of when we got the Cobras, one of the pilots, a Cobra pilot, brand new, took one and barrel rolled it because somebody said that it couldn't be done. Well, he just pulled the guts out of it. I mean, it was totaled.
Oh my.
And those are $500,000 helicopters. And he not only washed out, he went down to being a grunt.
Oh my.
They really did him a number.
Okay, and if you'll explain what a Cobra helicopter is.
It's a later model gunship. It carries rockets, miniguns, sometimes 20 millimeter. It's got a lot of armament on it.
And its mission
It's to
is
ride cover. Yeah.
And no troops, obviously. It's
No, it's just got two guys in it. One's a pilot and one's a gunner.
What did you think of a Cobra gunship?
Oh, when I first saw them, I thought they were fantastic because they were so narrow and aggressive looking. You know, they were really neat. And actually, the first time I saw them in operation covering us, they were a threat.
Is that
Big
right?
Threat, yeah.
Could you fly in the back seat of one of those
No.
ever? Never.
I did once, just on a mission just around the base, you know. It was just something to do that day because I'd never been in one.
Just to get the feel of it.
Yeah.
Okay, you were there, okay, I just want to get the time frame here. You were there most of 68 and the...
No, hardly any of 68. None
into
of 68.
I'm sorry, into 69.
69, 70, and 71.
Okay, so if you'll explain the time frame, you were there all of 69, came
Pretty much.
home.
Yeah. Well, actually, in 70, I came home the
In
first time.
In 70,
Yeah.
stayed how long?
I was there a year at that time.
But stayed home how long?
Oh, 30 days you had.
And then you re-upped
Yeah, they didn't call it re-up, extension
for 6 more
for
months.
6 more months.
You wanted to do it
Yeah.
because...
Well, I got orders for Fort Hood, Texas, and I did not want to go to Fort Hood, Texas. So I went in and extended.
You're saying Vietnam is better than Fort Hood, Texas?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Well, by that time, you know, once you get a year in, you're kind of like the old guy in the place. I could name my R&Rs. I mean, just about anything.
Yeah, but you're in the war.
Yeah, but like I said, you're young and invincible, you know.
Okay, so you said, I'm holding my hand up, I'm going back over for 6 more months.
Yeah.
And you went back to Pleiku?
Yeah.
Same group over there?
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
Was
the
it
whole
di-
time I was there, I was with the same group.
Was it different coming back for you?
No, not really. I was ready to do my job. The last time was the worst one.
Okay, so you're 6 months, everything's going okay. You come back home again
Hmm.
for 30 days,
Yeah.
and you say, I want to go back again.
Yeah.
Extend 6 more months.
Because I got Fort Sill, Oklahoma. If they would have put me someplace on the West Coast, I would. Anyplace. I don't care.
Okay. Okay, so back you go again to the same place.
Mhm.
So that, a total of 2 years total
Yeah.
in the same area.
Right.
Doing pretty much.
Not in the same area.
Okay.
When I came home the first time, and I went back, they'd actually moved to Ankei. And I didn't know it. The guy dropped me off at Pleiku, and I walked up to our barracks, and it's all Arvin, you know. And it took a while.
And Arvin is,
The Republic of Vietnam soldiers.
right.
But, you know, I didn't know what was going on. I finally got a hold of somebody that could talk English. And they're the ones that told me, you know, everything's north. So I had to hop another flight to Ankei.
Okay, is that where you spent the rest of your time?
Yeah.
And that was your base operation?
Yeah, that was the AO for the whole rest of the time I was there.
By the way, so we're into 70 and 71. Were you seeing changes in the war by that point?
Yeah,
I think
that's
you
when I
touched on it a little bit.
yeah, that's when I stopped kind of believing in it. There was too much ground that we'd take and then give back, and it was like everything was a game, only they were doing it with people's lives. And the last R&R I went on, I actually hopped a flight to Vung Tau on a general's plane, and they were up front talking about, and actually I was all the way in the rear with the luggage, but they were up front talking about casualties. If they did this, they'd take this many casualties. If they did that, they'd take it. It was like a chess game, and I couldn't believe it. You know, you're talking about people, humans here,
Wow,
and this is our side.
right.
You know,
Yeah, and,
that was my biggest disillusion.
wow.
You know,
Yeah, that's, and can you talk about the body count?
that was stupid.
Could you, what's your thinking on that?
It was asinine. It was, first of all, it was inflated 99% of the time. And that was so you could get, like, if you got a high body count, you could go back to base camp and do some drinking and party for a while before you had to go back out. And it just got to be a game. It wasn't.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I didn't see any use at all in a body count. And that was our main job.
And if you'll explain, as you understand, the purpose of all of that?
Well, I don't know what the purpose was because it didn't work.
Like we're winning the war?
I think it was
Making
supposed to make it
progress.
look like we were winning a war. But you don't win a war on body counts. You win it on taking land and keeping it. And that's what nobody could understand. And some of them were horrendous battles.
Yeah. And were you involved in a very major operation?
Several of them.
Would you mind sharing?
Duke Lop was a big operation.
Could you spell that? Duke? Is it
D-U-C-L-A-P, I think,
Okay.
if I remember right.
Over by Pleiku?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, it was west of Pleiku. It was just off the border with Laos.
Okay. Do you mind just sharing what a major operation is like?
Well, we were stationed in Bambi-Tuit at the time. We had no protection. They flew us in there, and the first night we didn't even have armor or anything there. So we were sitting there, and next day the armor came, and they set up a perimeter around us, but I never have understood that one. And we'd fly to Duke Lop almost every day, and I've got pictures of the flights over there because we'd go under this bridge in the helicopter. And it was always hot, always.
Under a bridge?
Yeah. Just because we could.
Okay.
You do stupid stuff. Like I said, you're young and invincible, and so are the pilots. So.
Oh my. But, and were those the North Vietnamese?
Yeah, pretty much,
The Indians?
totally. Except for Duke Lop itself, it was Special Forces and ARVN, and they could always tell when they were going to get hit because they'd lose half the ARVNs out the back door.
Going home?
Yeah.
Could you explain the difference between an NVA being North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong?
The North Vietnamese were better equipped, better uniformed, better everything, and they came down from the north. The Viet Cong were usually residents. They could be anybody. You didn't know, but they lived in the south. So
But they did fight alongside each other.
sometimes, yeah.
And who was supplying the North Vietnamese?
I figure China was most of it. I mean, their main weapons were Russian, but
Yeah.
AK-47s.
Yeah. Did your mom know what you were doing?
Not all of it. She knew some of it. But
And, okay, then, fast forward then, it's getting toward the end of your tour, your very extended tour.
yeah,
Could you have extended again?
I could have, but I'd had to re-up to do it. That's why I said there's a big difference between re-up and extending. And they promised me E6. In fact, they gave me E6. And then I had I don't know, a couple of weeks to think about it or something. And I'd quit flying by this time. Because when you're 90 days going out of country, you can opt out.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Not, technically you can't, but you do.
Okay.
But, where was I going with this?
As far as not extending, but the
Oh.
last, becoming a short-timer.
Yeah, by then my nerves were shot and I was shot. I mean, too many friends, too much of everything. I was on overload.
Do you mind sharing just a little bit more? During those 2 years, you lost more than a few buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, burnout, exhausted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just a pile of crap.
Yeah. Okay, the last month or so inside Vietnam, were you in base camp on Cave?
No, I was still in on-K, yeah, but
Uh-huh.
I was, at that time, TIing helicopters. I wasn't flying them.
Doing what now?
Tech inspector,
Oh, okay. Mhm.
because I'd been doing it for so long. They just, I don't know why, they just moved me into that slot, so I didn't have to fly missions.
Do you mind sharing about just the burnout, physically, mentally?
Just everything. Your whole life, it seems like you just, you were shrunken. It's like, kind of like you let the air out of a balloon. It's just, yet when you leave, then you got such a guilt complex. It's kind of
Because
a
you're
paradox.
alive? Because you're alive?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of a paradox. I don't know really how to explain it.
Survivor's guilt?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm probing just a little bit because, you know, a person listening to your story, none of us can ever comprehend what war really is like and what it does to a person. And this is so valuable, you know, and I try to be sensitive to.
Well, that's why I wanted to do it. I mean, everybody had their own experiences. I mean, guys that have been in combat share a bond that, you know, nobody else can get into.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea.
That's right. And not to put words in your mouth, but when you come home, is it just, well, let's come home. Where did you come home to? Where did you land?
Actually, I landed in the Air Force Base in Seattle. What is that?
Not, see, not Fairchild, though.
Yeah, it is Fairchild.
Is it Fairchild?
Isn't it?
Or Spokane?
Oh, it wasn't Spokane, it was Seattle. Is that, oh, no, wait a minute. Now you got me confused. I can't remember the
But
name
it was
of
into Seattle.
Yeah, it was into Seattle.
Okay.
And I actually flew into Seattle with a friend from over there. Got out close the same time I did. But he spent more time in the train waiting for a flight out. I actually went over my flight out time because they were giving 5-month early outs.
Mhm.
And I only ended up with, like, I think 3 months or something like that.
Can you describe, or do you even remember boarding that plane and looking back at Vietnam? Can you remember
Yeah,
that day?
I will remember that forever because everybody was so quiet. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop in that plane. And as soon as those wheels thumped up, I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but they kind of thump when they close in. Everybody just started yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
It was pandemonium.
Yeah. Just,
But then it got quiet again, you know. Everybody lost in their thoughts, I think.
yeah, lots to think about coming home.
Mhm.
So you're landing in the Seattle area. What were the first 2 days like when you got back?
A drunken haze. I'm serious. I watched my plane leave 2 or 3 times to come back to Walla from there. I mean, I watched it leave.
Yeah.
And
And did your mom know you had touched down and were?
I don't think she knew when I actually got in the country because it was a process, you know, and they usher you out like it was the middle of the night when they did all this. They give you the steak dinner and take you to the airport, but they just dump you off. You're on your own.
So your homecoming was okay?
Yeah, mine was. I know there's some that weren't. But here, I can't complain at all. It was okay.
And Mike, so did you have just a few more months then to discharge then?
No, I was discharged when I got out of Fort Lewis.
That was it.
I was done.
How did you get home? Flew home?
Yeah, I flew into Walla, and then I think my sister came and got me.
What was that like when you touched down in Walla?
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was kind of a letdown, to tell you the truth. It was just, I was going through some stages at that time, and I think it was, you know, just doubting myself whether I did the right thing, getting out, or, you know, what was I going to do now?
Pretty normal.
Yeah. But it was, you're not as happy as you think you'd be.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
natural, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing unusual about those emotions. So I have to ask then, did you have a plan, or you just
No.
didn't know?
I ended up going to Central America with a friend of mine in a Volkswagen bus. And it's a good thing, because I got a lot of my animosity and a lot of stuff out that would have caused me problems.
So, again, not to put words, but were you kind of bittersweet, angry, how things
Not
turned out?
angry,
or-
just edgy, really edgy. Everything would set me off, you know, it just, you don't really feel like yourself, and you can't relate to others. They'd say, oh, I had a bad day. No, you didn't, you know.
Was it, do you think you were getting let down from an adrenaline high?
Well, that's always part of it, but I mean, more of the survivor's guilt. You know, I always thought that if I'd stayed, I might have been able to save somebody else. Or, you know, because by the time I left, I was one of the oldest guys in the 4th Division. And I had a lot of knowledge, whether I wanted it or not.
I'm sure you did.
And sometimes I felt like I left early.
Was it any consolation to know that you did save lives?
Yeah, it was.
And so when you got home, did you keep in touch with any of your buddies?
No. No.
And why didn't you?
It brought the war back. It just, the one guy that went over that was in my group of 5, he was in avionics, so he didn't really see any combat per se, but they'd get, you know, mortar attacks and stuff. But even talking to him would just bring everything back. And
Did your family try to have conversations with you?
a little bit, but I think they understood.
Sure. And how long were you in Central? And why did you go there, and how long did you stay?
It was his idea. So
It was
it was his idea.
some other guy?
So I went along with it. Yeah.
Okay. How long did you stay down there?
Well, just a few months.
Uh,
Mostly in Mexico, but
So you came home, and then what happened when you came back?
nothing really. It was just you're still living on kind of an adrenaline rush, and everything else is moving in a different direction than you are.
Was it kind of hard to find a job or settle down?
I wouldn't know because I didn't do it right away.
You're an honest man.
They they gave you like $250 the state of Washington as a kind of a gift, and then you got unemployment, which was a gift. And I wasn't interested in school or anything, so I was able to maintain an apartment and my lifestyle for a while.
Just kind of hanging out for a
Yeah.
while. If I might get a little personal, was there anybody you were interested in, involved, or you're just kind of isolating yourself?
Oh, I had friends. We went out all the time. Women I had a harder thing with because they didn't understand at all, and I was having flashbacks for a long time, and
Sure.
finally got to the point where I quit dreaming, which I don't dream to this day now.
That's good. Did you, again, if it's too personal, but did you say, man, I gotta talk to somebody?
No, never even crossed my mind.
Did not?
No. I can handle this.
Yeah,
I did it through a bottle, and
yeah.
you know, I drank a lot for first couple of years.
Common story, Michael.
Yeah.
So fast forward then, you kind of evened out, got a job then?
Mhm.
What did you do?
Actually, I worked for a cleaning outfit, for a while, and then I went to work for the city of Walla.
Doing what?
Well, it kind of bounced around. I ended up working in garbage,
Mhm.
and then I went out to the dump and ran heavy equipment for them,
Mhm.
and then I went to the pen. But I
Oh, you worked at the pen?
Yeah,
Oh.
but that was after 13 and a half years at the city,
Oh, okay.
and it was the same retirement. I went to the pen because it paid better, and it was the same retirement. But by the time I retired, the city was actually making more than I was. So that was a dumb move.
Well, at the time.
At the time, yeah.
And you got married
Yeah,
and
Divorced.
children?
got two beautiful children.
And if you'll name their names,
John and Jessica.
are they here in Walla?
One is
Uh-huh.
John,
Mhm.
and Jessica's in Enterprise, Oregon.
Enterprise, and you got divorced then,
Mhm.
Did you remarry?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm a widow.
Oh, okay.
She was diabetic. When I met her, she was great. I mean, there wasn't any medical problems, but within a 10-year period, she had developed a lot of problems.
Mhm.
And she went in for a kidney transplant, and everything that could go wrong went wrong, and she died.
Wow. Do you mind mentioning the mother's name of your children?
I don't care. But
It's okay. It's up to you.
Oh, her name's Patricia.
Patricia,
Yeah,
and your late wife was
Kathleen.
Kathleen. Okay, it's totally up to you. Well, did you ever keep a personal diary when you were overseas in Vietnam?
No,
Uh-huh. And
the
you-
closest I have is that
Photos.
photograph.
That's great to have that. To this day then, do you stay in touch with anybody, service organizations? You mentioned a reunion.
I do via email, but it's not so much my participation, it's theirs sending me stuff.
Uh-huh.
And this is the first year that I've actually thought about going. I don't know yet whether I will or not. It's
Yeah.
coming up real fast, April.
And you did mention you've been to Washington,
Yeah,
D.C.
DC.
You visited the wall.
Yeah.
And so, one final question. How do you feel like your service and experiences affected your life?
I think it kind of made me what I am today. I mean, I'm not bragging, but I think I've got it pretty well together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm retired now, and I've had a fairly good pension and whatnot. My house is paid for, and I own 2 houses.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
I think in a lot of ways, the experience itself probably tore me down and then built me back up. And I don't know any other way to put it. It's something I don't dwell on because I don't like to. In fact, this interview is one of my ways of getting some of that out.
I appreciate that, you doing
So-
this.
Because I'd never talked about it.
Right. We really appreciate you being here today, Michael. Maybe we hope there's a little bit of therapy involved here. And from our aspect, it's something, the story, from my point of view, needs to be told. You know, what our veterans have gone through to serve our country.
Yeah, because they didn't challenge anything. I mean, most of the guys I was with volunteered. You know, everybody says that, or thinks that 90% were drafted. That's not the case.
And I sit in awe in these interviews, my privilege and the courage to say yes to go to war. I can't comprehend it. But in any event, is there anything that I missed that you would like to add to this interview?
Just that I'm really tired of young men becoming cannon fodder. And what's still going on today, I think Afghanistan and Iraq are the same no-win positions.
Do you mind expanding on that, how things should be different?
I don't think we're the peacekeepers of the world anymore. Those days are over. We've got too many problems right here at home to be worrying about halfway around the world. And like I said, I'm tired of them chewing up young men. It's still going on, and there's no reason for it that I see.
If I could just reflect back on Vietnam, hindsight, if there had been a victory, can you even imagine what would be different about maybe Southeast Asia or Vietnam today?
I can't imagine anything being different.
Really?
Because most of those people, even talking to them while I was there, you know, the war was a distant thing for them. They were just interested in getting their crops in, or getting them out, or going from point A to point B and raising their family.
Exactly.
They weren't, the war to them was, you know, I think it was more on our side than it was theirs.
Well, I'm gonna put my 2 cents in. I think it was a noble mission in the beginning, you know. But, well, those are very good comments. Vic, is there anything you want to?
Did you join any service organizations?
I belong to the VFW and have been since, actually before I went to Vietnam.
Did you?
Yeah.
All right.
Because we came home on leave from basic training and got shit-faced on the train coming home and ended up with the VFW for about 3 days, I think.
Well,
And we joined.
Oh, good.
All of us did.
Good group.
Yeah.
But, well, I always feel like I've missed something, you know, in these interviews. But, gosh, thank you. You gave a wonderful, wonderful interview and some very good insights. And thank you so much for being here and for your service. It sounds like a platitude, but really, thank you for
No, I appreciate it.
serving our country.
Because what we did, we thought was right.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was one very last question. Have you ever had any interest in going back to Vietnam
None.
to visit it?
None.
Okay.
I got too much blood on the ground there, and I don't want to see it.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. Well, thank you again very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.